Saving American Family Field, determining the future of elections in Wisconsin, and what to do with a multi-billion-dollar budget surplus. CBS 58's Emilee Fannon and WisPolitics editor J.R. Ross discuss in tonight's Capital Connection.
First, we're going to start with the ongoing legal battle over the state's top election official. That is Wolfe, who serves as the administrator of the Elections Commission. Now, this week, we learned that GOP leaders, after many weeks saying that they had the authority to hold a vote to fire her, have admitted in a court ruling that they had no legal grounds or power to do that. But now we're seeing some GOP leaders, two of them specifically, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos and Senate President Chris Kabaga, trying to distance themselves from that lawsuit and what was said in it. So this can kind of get a little bit interesting moving forward with this issue.
So Josh Call, the Attorney General, asked for 5 things in his lawsuit. One of them is a declaration that this committee that's run by Republicans can't appoint an interim, and some other things. The Republicans basically are saying, we're going to concede to call on 4 things, including that this vote was symbolic to fire Wolfe. We want to focus on one thing. That is, did the Elections Commission have a duty to appoint somebody new? If you read between the lines of what LeMahieu, the Senator leader, is saying, and Robin Vos, they're kind of saying, this is the lawyers. The lawyers have this point of view. They're telling us it's the best way to go. And talking to LeMahieu, he said, this is our best strategy to get something resolved. Now, what I'm watching with this case is Republicans had asked for kind of a resolution on some things by November 1st. Judges don't like to be pushed along often, but we are getting to be a year and a couple weeks out from an election. How quickly will they resolve who's the election administrator overseeing Wisconsin elections ahead of a very, very important and very big election in Wisconsin?
Right, and we'll see where this issue goes on because, like you mentioned, we're inching closer and closer. A lot of election officials that I'm talking to want a resolution sooner rather than later, just to have that certainty of who is going to be leading the agency heading into a very contentious election season next year. Also, we're going to recap a little bit, moving on to, it was a very busy day here on Tuesday with the Senate and Assembly both in session. Starting with the Senate. Senate Republicans, a proposal that was spearheaded by Senator LeMahieu, passed a $2 billion tax cut, which was the alternative to Governor Evers' $1 billion workforce package that also would address the child care industry. This has been an issue that he's been talking about, traveling the state for a very long time now. But we know, in the end, Governor Evers is likely going to veto this proposal, but now we're hearing again from Senate Republicans saying, hey, we're not just ignoring the child care and the workforce industry. At some point, we're going to present our own plan. But the details are important there because is it going to be something that the governor is going to like?
Yeah, and the big picture is we're on pace right now to have a $4 billion surplus at the end of this biennium, in the middle of 2025. That money sits there. You're going to have Evers keep saying, let's spend it. Republicans keep saying, let's do tax breaks. I don't know there's a room for compromise right now, but if it continues to sit, it tees you up for the next budget being a one you can do a whole lot with in 2025.
Now shifting over to the attention on the Assembly, their big piece of legislation that they passed this week was the sweeping proposal that would fund renovations at American Family Field. Now we know a key component of that bill that got a lot of Democratic support, which was needed in order to pass this bill, was lowering the Milwaukee city and county contribution from roughly about $202 million and lowering that to $135 million. But it didn't really be popular among all Milwaukee Republicans, which is something to watch for going forward. Even though they celebrated getting this across the finish line, the big question mark is there going to be enough votes in the Senate when they take this up?
So typically, Republicans want to pass bills with just their own votes. So like in the Senate, you have 33 members. They want 17 GOP votes to pass any bill. In the calls that I made this past week, there are not 17 Republicans who support this bill as is. Now their changes are coming. We know they talked about a ticket tax on non-brewer events. They've talked about an audit of the district board's finances. Okay, those things are not going to move a number of people. So my question is, how do you form the coalition to get to 17 votes and then some possibly to pass it? Go back in the Assembly, fewer than 50 GOP votes for the bill. So there's that question. Does Devin LeMahieu, the Senate leader, does he twist arms with people on board? Does Governor Tony Evers, does he twist arms among Democrats and say, hey, we want you on board? We know the Milwaukee delegation. Chris Larson is probably a no, probably a hard no. Where's Tim Carpenter? Where's LaTanya Johnson? Where's Lena Taylor? Big questions for the Senate. And also watching, too, with this bill, how quickly can they get it done? They're on the floor for a couple weeks in November. If you don't finish it up in November, it becomes a heavier lift in January because now lawmakers have lost that momentum of that big bipartisan vote in the Assembly. It gets farther and farther away, and you get closer and closer to spring elections in Milwaukee, which local officials like to kind of keep some distance from this bill becoming law if it does, and that.
And right, and if the bill does get even more, say, drastic changes, is Governor Evers going to like those? Because as the bill stands right now, he's on board with it, but adding the non-brewers ticket tax, I don't think that's a big game changer in his mind. But there could be other things that are added that might not get his approval, so something to watch for. All right, that will do it this week. Thanks so much for joining us.